Yeah, you should be able to do it.
Let me
Should be
try
a little
starting
video
video.
icon. There
How's
you go.
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
repping the New Balance front and center. But we have, close to 200 people here anxiously waiting to get rolling, to hear from the man. So Jeremy, thank you so much for hopping on tonight. I'm pumped just to change it up, get to talk the game, step away from the monotony that has become life over the past several weeks. But for those that are on Facebook, those that are, in the Zoom chat that don't know about you and don't know about Program 15 or the Future Stars series, you want to give us a little bit of a intro and background on that?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jeremy Booth, and thanks everybody for joining tonight. I'm excited to be here with you, Nelson. Always love talking baseball and talking the game. I'm the founder, CEO, and president of baseball operations of the New Balance Baseball Future Stars Series and Program 15. Future Stars Series is the global initiative of New Balance Baseball. That means the amateur events that New Balance is directly involved in, player selection process, all the way to International Week at Fenway Park runs through us. We are currently working with and have players from in our series from 12 different countries. And a series of events that starts from all the way at the Scout Day and the Open ID, Nelson, that we partner with, and our national tournaments, again, to the pinnacle at Fenway Park. So it's our fourth year in existence now. We've had partner events like the Music City Classic, Atlantic Coast tournaments, the NorCal World Series, and obviously the 2D Scout games, and of course, Crossroads Baseball Series. So all those events work to identify players and feed them into the system that is put in, and of course, with our staff, which has 22 World Series rings, over 500 years of major league experience, and to give you an indication how proud I am of our staff, with those 22 rings, Nelson, I don't have any, right? I don't have any. So we have a pretty good group, and so in a nutshell, that's who we are, and very active at all different levels of college baseball, and of course professional baseball with 22 different clubs on our advisory board, clubs like the New York Mets and Milwaukee Brewers and Boston Red Sox and Tampa Bay Rays and so forth and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's endless. And the crazy thing for me is when I have to answer the question, what is Program 15? And you did a great job of summing it up because, it is your brainchild. And, for those that don't know who I am, my name is Nelson Gord. I'm the director of baseball for NCSA, but also the founder of the Illinois Travel Baseball Club, better known as the Illinois Indians. And, the thing that excites me most is just watching this entire event series, the concept grow from our first conversations back during the summer of 2016 to the inaugural meetings that we had later on that fall, from the first event in December of that year, now to all the things that you just named and, what's coming in the future, which is pretty cool to talk about. And that's what we're about to do next here. So, we'll
I want to get into something with you personally. You personally, as I told you when we first did this, it mattered to have you involved with this, right? Because I know how much you care about the kids, how much you care about moving it forward, that you recognize good, you recognize the not so good, you're a good sounding board, but you're into it for players and how to help, not just the guy that's going to be the first round pick, but the guy that's just trying to move on with his life and be a good person, as well as play college baseball. You're very invested in the youth. And so for me, you've been a founding member here with both the Indians and you personally leading our recruiting efforts and how to, build in the online platforms and merge stats and all kinds of different things we can do together to help players. So I want to thank you as well for your efforts to help us get us this far.
I appreciate that. And I think a lot of that has to do with, just like for anybody else, their background, how they were raised, where they come from. And, for me, hitting a baseball or playing catch were never things that I guess I mean, you always need to work on it, but they didn't come terribly difficult. It was something I enjoyed doing. I had one hitting lesson in my life from Jimmy Lindeman, played for the Cardinals, won the World Series, 87. That's because he was selling cars to my dad. And I think my dad gave him $20 before the place opened one day. But the thing that was, so difficult when I was going through this was the recruiting aspect. And that's because I came from a household where nobody had ever gone to college, nobody had their college degree. So the thought of going to college was something that we knew we had to do, but we really didn't know how to go about doing it. And then you add playing a sport into the mix and it made it even more daunting. So, as I got into coaching and everything else, I realized that's the path I wanted to go down. and to work with, people like yourself, work with groups like this to make those dreams possible. I mean, the first round draft pick, those kids, you know, like I said in Bull Durham, like they were blessed with something. God had a lightning bolt come down in your arm, whatever phrase you want to use. But it's the kids that, it's truly going to change their life in other ways and make things possible that otherwise would not be possible through the game of baseball. And that's what gets me up every morning, gets me pumped, and that's why I'm excited to talk here tonight. So the agenda, go ahead. You had something else there? Looks like you're frozen.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. So the agenda, and I'll run through this quick because we have a bunch of stuff to cover. The first thing we're going to go over is like a lot of the Program 15 announcements. And there's so much that's been put out, and there was so much leading up to, kind of this national shutdown that I think some of it might have got lost in the shuffle. Not all the players that are on, not all the coaches that are on are fully aware of what's been planned. So we're going to touch on some of that. We're going to talk about what college coaches are saying, both to you, to our staff, to our players. So we get a sense of that, what the scouts are doing. I think that's a mystery to begin with. I think a lot of amateur players don't really fully understand what scouts do or how they function or what their role is. But, now more than ever, when you don't even see them out at the ballpark, what are they doing behind the scenes? We'll talk about how this affects the game, overall from the top down, from Major League Baseball, minor league ball, all the way down to the amateur level. What you guys are doing in response. We've had some conversations about the plans for this summer and how the nationals are going to be ultra safe, and some of the events are going to really have that attention to detail that you've been known for. Last couple things, some solutions to help coaches and players, and then how NCSA specifically can help. So I think we'll hop right into the P15 announcements. So I listed out a bunch here. We can go down the list, from the open ID and combines on down. So do you want to give us some updates on what's been coming up?
That's kind of a broad list. So, start number one, the open ID and combines, the end of 2019, man, it's hard. At the end of 2019, we announced a level in the middle of our scout games, or our scout day, and the tournaments, and that's called the regional combine. And what we do is we get a deeper look into that with players we've identified through our partner events or our events or scout days with our partner programs like the Illinois Indians, and we bring them into a more focused event. We have high-tech, we have pitch FX data, we use blast testing, and not only do you get a full Major League Scouting report with that, written by a former Major League Scout, and development feedback, as well as our coordinators on site working with you, but you get how this data means, right? I mean, so much is data and how it's going to be broken down, how it's used to evaluate from a role perspective, which means value, and how it works to predict what you may be, and how it works to grow as a development, right? How we can use all those things. So that's part of those combines. The NCSA component is something that's very valuable to me, and that's the open ID. The open ID is for players we don't know. It's just simply players we haven't seen, we haven't invited to this portion. One of the things about our series is that you do really have to be invited and seen. You have to be recommended and invited to it, or seen by us. So the open ID gives us a chance through in partnership with NCSA to see players we don't know that can come in and test for, I believe it's $25, right? That's all they have to pay is $25, and they come work out, and we do, the 10, the 40, and the 60, and we'll do a pro agility, a broad jump, a med ball toss, some basic swings to got some just raw numbers and some raw ending, and we'll pick guys from into the, and so we want some new players through that portion, right? I'd encourage, if you don't know us yet, if you have a chance session in your area, because not only do you get some updates to your NCSA recruiting profile, but you have a chance to advance to the portion of the event, move on to whether it's the underclass event that we have, which is coming in number 5, or the national. That's number one. It really is an event that we're very proud to put together. It's regional. We travel to you. We're trying to help families save some money, put that back in their pocket, and use that towards other things you may need later, and maybe towards college education should you have to help with that too, right? So we're trying to make it as easy as we can for players to be seen and move forward. The next thing, then, balance extension. And so this is our, we announced the series in August of 2016, right? August 2016. Yep. And we've had some, we had a contract with New Balance, as we discussed, with us being a global initiative. We recently signed an extension that takes us for, a long-term, quite a few years now. And it's something that we're very proud of. It's something that we've worked hard in partnership with New Balance, which is a give back brand. They're very interested in communities. They're very interested in the youth. They want to do something that is more than just showcasing. They want to be a part of something that's going to help change some lives. And so it's a perfect brand for us, Nelson. It's a perfect brand for me personally. We were able to sign a long-term extension with them that we announced right after the first of the year, but was really signed in 2019. Lake Charles, Louisiana. So for the first 3 years, we had national tournaments, and based in Houston, Texas, is where I live, is in Houston. And they're based in Houston, Texas. And this year, towards the end of 2019, we signed an agreement with the Southwest Louisiana Tourism Bureau. And that essentially makes Lake Charles, Louisiana, our long-term home for up to the next 8 years for our national tournaments. We'll hold several events there besides our national tournaments, but we have venues like where they hold their state championship, Spar Regional. We have McNeese State. We have Barb High School. We have an old ballpark that's been refurbished. That, man, it looks really great. It's turf field, but it's where Jackie Robinson played in that stadium. And I walked into that stadium and I had some chills, man. I actually stood in the box after 20 plus years in professional baseball. I was able to stand in the batter's box where Jackie Robinson once stood. It's the only park that I know of that I've been in. It was unbelievable. I'm really excited for the players to be able to appreciate that and see that and be part of that history. And so for us, it was a better move, right? It's a community. It's got golf courses and it's got, a bayou. It's got lakes, Lake Charles, right? It's got some rivers. It's got some all kinds of culture for people to enjoy. And for us, we felt that players wanted to need some opportunity to see some different things and be part of a different community. So it made sense for us and our partner programs to go there. Number 4 is, I'm assuming, part of what we'll talk about later, right? And that's the pre-draft combine. Maybe 2 weeks ago, we announced a pre-draft combine, and there are going to be 4 regional events, one in the West Coast, one in Texas, which will handle the South, one in the Southeast, right now is ticketed for Florida, and one in the upper Midwest, which I believe will be in Kansas City or Cincinnati, depending on availability and timing. These events are completely free, and these events are designed to assist draft-eligible players who had their seasons cut short, which is pretty much everybody, whether it's college, whether it's high school, it doesn't matter. If you're one of our National League guys like Zach Veen and Mick Abel, or if you're a college guy in Michigan like Jesse Franklin, you have had, or Bryce Bonner at Texas Tech, right? You've had your season cut short.
That video is nasty.
What video?
The Texas Tech kid.
Bryce Bonner? Yeah, Bryce pretty good. But to have those players, who are trying to take that step to the next level, move forward, they need a place to show that. Scouts need a place to see players, and again, with the way we've been able to formulate the deeper insights and the feedback to both, it seems like a good opportunity for us to help, and that's all we're doing is trying to help. So in the first 2 weeks of that, Nelson, we've had over 1,000, I believe, inquiries, let's say, into that, right? And I'm going through the list now. I'm going through videos, and I'm going through reference checks, I'm going through stats, and spent a lot of time looking at the computer trying to get through those and figure out who exactly we're going to invite. The list is pretty good. It's pretty good. Out of that 1,000, I believe we're going to invite 400, be 100 per site. We may extend that a little bit, just if there's players, because it really does look like there's a lot of guys that have good arms and some good swings and athletic and things that clubs may see some value in after the 5 to 10 or 15, whatever round draft they settle on. So we want to make sure those players get an opportunity, and those are completely free, but you have to be, vetted and apply and then invited, of course. So that's the pre-draft combines. Going down the list, number 5, the underclass and the national. So we talked about the national team tournaments a bit ago. That's where all our partner programs come in now to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and they play an event. And those events are broadcast or streamed online on Flow Baseball, which is the new baseball channel for Flow Sports that's seen globally. We feel like that's a value to the player because the games don't go anywhere. They live. After the games, when the tournament's over, it gives scouts, it gives recruiters, it gives families a chance to relive those moments and watch those games again, answer some questions about things they may have seen, break down high definition video. And so that's all done at our national team tournaments. Our partner programs like the Illinois Indians, Orlando Scorpions, NorCal Baseball, those groups are coming to Lake Charles to be part of that. And the underclass is an event for at this point, anybody under class of 2021, right? Because that's rising seniors in the summer, to selected from our regional combines. They gets to participate in a 4-day event. 1 day is a testing day, and let's call it a athletic testing and showcase type day, just because that's the best term we're going to use for it. And then we play games. Our development staff is on site. We have scouts that are on site. I've had college coaches telling me they're circling that event and they can't wait for it to get there. And that's good, because that's what it's for. We'll take 132 players and we'll put them in that event and that environment and divide them into 6 teams and let them play for 4 or 5 days and do what they can to see if we can't get something out of that. And the national part for the national combine is our signature event in the summer. That's right for that, for class of 2021 players. That is what we picked Fenway Park from. And same idea, bringing in 132 kids, bringing them in to Lake Charles, Louisiana this summer in July. And we will have those kids compete, 6 different teams. And we'll also, all this stuff is broadcast on Flow Baseball, and we'll select Fenway from there. And not listed here yet is we do the same thing on the world side, right? So the first time ever, there's actually a world combine, right?
Yep.
Man, this pandemic hit. Now 5 days before we were touchdown in IMG.
I know.
Man, we were ready to go. Everything was locked up, shipped, and then bam, we have this pandemic. Cut players from and the Dominican, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Bahamas, all in attendance at that. We're going to be at that event. Australia as well was going to be it too. Obviously, with the pandemic, they were shut down sooner, but 132 players there as well. Man, it's and this is, I can't tell you how many millions of dollars, but at least 15 to 20 was probably on that field between 132 kids. It was exciting to see that come together. That event's just been moved. It's been postponed a little bit, but that's going to happen. So we're excited to have that for the first time ever as well. And then, we've talked about this being my brainchild, but I will say number 6 is my baby. That's kind of my baby. We talked about that. And that's International Week. And the idea International Week, which is held in Fenway Park, is to bring 25 U.S.-born players that come through this system of process against 25 world-born players, non-U.S., Canada, Puerto Rico, all the countries we mentioned that we work with. We'll pick players from that now World Combine and bring them to Fenway Park to go play in a 3-game series. The first 2 years of that event saw $18 million in signing bonuses. That was the classes of 2017 and 2018. We had Noah Naylor in that event. We had Daniel Espino in that event. We had Grayson Rodriguez in that event, and Desan Brown, and plenty more. And the ones that participated in 2019 that people will see all over Twitter now and all over the publications: Zach Veen, Mick Abel. Mick Abel was in 2017 and 18, by the way. David Calabrese, Tommy Troy, Justin Lang, Tink Hentz, Nick Griffin, Nate Wolgemuth, right? All those players were at that event. Dylan Cruz. So Michael Brooks, just continue. It's something that we've been very happy to put together, and all those players have gone through our system to get there. So that event's slated to go back to Fenway this year as well in August. And last year in Fenway was one of the best baseball experiences I've ever had. So it's incredibly moving to see those kids walk in there, appreciate where they are, look around at the history, get on the field. And man, every time I step on Fenway, and Nelson's probably been 40 times I've been at Fenway Park on the field, right? Every time I step on Fenway and I look up, it's like all over again. It's chills all over again. So that's a very important event to me, to us, and we're excited to be able to bring that to the players.
And I think that's it, is that, so often we go to these events, or, you attend different places, and it's kind of just a turnstile, right? Like, get them in, get them out. And the fact that you were able to run through pretty much the entire roster, and I know you were conscious of not leaving anybody out because those kids mean so much to you. I mean, there was a lot of thought, a lot of debate, a lot of conversations that went into choosing them. And, that's what's so neat to watch is to see this groundswell of programs and different minds come together, and every entity kind of has its role. Like, I know from the NCSA side, we're hyper focused on finding that right fit for kids, finding that school where, at one point in their life, maybe college baseball wasn't an option. But if we can make that connection, you might be talking about $25,000 a year to attend school and to do things. On the other end of the spectrum, we're talking $18 million in signing bonuses,
Right.
20 million potentially at the international or the international week. It's crazy numbers to talk about, but the commonality is that we're making a difference and we're meeting that player where they're at, right? And we have a solution for every single one of them. Which I can't say. I mean, I think a lot of groups do a lot of things really, really well. I'm not sure how many can attack all of it and capture all of it, within one series.
Well, we feel like, and you and I have had this conversation multiple times. We feel like the event, if you participate, needs to leave you better. We feel like it needs to live. It needs to advance you somehow. It can make you think different, which sometimes is all you get, right? You get one day, you get just something to think about, not necessarily some overall mechanical change, but something to change what you're thinking. We believe that it has to have, something that evaluators are going to get value out of.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many events I went to as a scout. As an area guy, cross checker, doesn't matter what I was doing, even internationally or what I was doing, even with the big league club. I can't tell you how many events I went to that didn't make any sense. It just didn't connect. Why are we doing this? How are we going to get these kids better? Because there's a tomorrow. There's a tomorrow,
Yep.
and these kids are here trying to get something out of it. So it's got to do that. It has to be something for the evaluators to help make better decisions. And we're in an age of analytics, for example, that is well known, whether it's exit velocity or spin rate. Well, what does that mean? How do we use that? How do we improve it? How do we make it playable? What does that tell me about your future value? And the players need to hear that. They need to hear that so they know how to build themselves, and they need to have an action plan. So all of these events, cover that. It's the whole nature of the series. Why we have our coordinators there. It's why you and I talk like we do. It's how it's supposed to evolve. So the goal of what we do is, and there is a higher access of exposure, I think, than we intended, but that's because so many people from the college world, starting with you, because you represent so many college coaches just by what you guys do, into the pro world, our advisory board club, and club, the only part of something big that's going to help and give back, and they want to help players and help the game move forward. So we were able to do that collectively. You can't do this with one person. It's got to be collective, and I think that's where we're fortunate.
For sure. And you just mentioned about the representing of colleges and kind of hearing their voice. I'll tell you what, as much as I've been talking to athletes and families and partner programs, I've been going back and forth with college coaches because, one, they don't know what the heck to do right now, because this is the first time in their life that they're not on a ball field, that they're not writing practice plans, they're not taking care of meal money, doing all that. But then also, the roster situations, right? I mean, there's so much that happened. And for those that are on that aren't familiar with the announcements that's been made, and we have a number of questions that came in regarding that topic, is the NCAA pretty much washed their hands of it and said, hey, institutions, individual colleges, universities, you handle it. We'll give you the go-ahead to extend your scholarships beyond the 11-7 at the Division I level, beyond the 9 at the Division II level. You can expand your rosters, okay, but we're not going to tell you how to come up with that money. We're not going to tell you how many or how few to have. We're not going to, mandate a date by which seniors have to decide what they're doing. Okay, so there's so many unknowns that are going on. So as much as they're trying to figure out, like, they're bouncing ideas off of me, off of others, asking what we think the guys that are in their current recruiting class are going to do. So it's really a two-way street. And what are some of the things that you're hearing from coaches that you're speaking with?
I think they're looking at it because we're talking to them from an angle as well with the pre-draft combines coming, right? So
Sure.
I'm getting it on that side. You basically got 5 classes now. I mean, if the seniors opt to stay, there's going to be decisions we have to make that go beyond whether or not they're able to give them a scholarship. That's go financially with the institution. There's going to be a backlog. Everybody gets a year back. If you're a freshman this year, you're a freshman next year, right? Seniors can now be 22 or 23 years old. In some cases, if depending on the circumstance, maybe 24. So you've got grad degrees, you've got people who have finished educations, you've got people who are going to use that extra year because they may never play again. You got people who were deprived of a chance to show, and speaking of seniors here, what value they would have to a major league club, and everybody gets a year back. So there's a bottleneck here. There just really is a bottleneck. And on the other side, the questions about the draft, what happens to those senior signs now? What happens to the draft? Again, I think it said a max of 20 rounds. likely to be 5. So somewhere between 5 and 20, let's just for argument's sake say 10.
Right.
What happens then? What happens if you have 10 rounds now? Then what? Because now we have a limit on what we can sign after. Do we sign players for $1,000? Fill our system? Have they been seen enough to do that? So there's some uncertainty here on who's going to come back, who's going to take that extra year, because at least as it stands today, and I think we've seen that at this point in the planet, anything's possible. As it stands today, the high school seniors aren't getting a year back. So they're
Right.
going to have to graduate, and they're going to go forward. And that creates 5 classes to fit into 4, and that's a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just spending Sunday, we were handing out some player packages with our Indians teams and coaches. And, all 4 guys that I was with, 5 guys that I was with, all coached at the college level. And it was really interesting to hear from them, right? How many seniors do you have? How many are coming back? And, in some cases it was 1 out of 5, others it was all of them. Another interesting point is at the junior college level, right? Like they're going to have the option. Are they going to stay for another season at that JUCO, whether they are a freshman or a sophomore? Are they going to go to the 4-year? If they go to the 4-year, are they going to be bounced back? So they're going to be a 4-year sophomore, or are they going to be a 4-year junior? I mean, there's a lot of things that, like you're saying, are still unknown. And my best advice, I know there's some questions in here that are asking how it's going to impact or what they should do. And as you go through the recruiting process, if you're trusting this particular coach with your son, I hope that you're doing it for more than just baseball, that you believe in the staff and what they stand for, and that they're men of their word, that they want what's best for your son. And they're going to have to make some tough choices. But if you're making the decisions for the right reasons, and you're trusting that they are, then you got to roll with it, right? And I think that's the importance of, as you go through the process, to really get to know people and really kind of start it early. I'm not condoning committing early. Okay, but I am saying that you have to develop that relationship to the point where, regardless of what happens, that you're in the right place. You're confident in that because you did your homework, and it's you're in the right spot.
Yeah, I think with the committing early is something that everybody has and I mean everybody when I say this, whether it's professional baseball, whether it's college coaches, whether it's you, whether it's travel teams, whether it's high school coaches, whether it's the players and the parents. Man, that's a hot topic, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who you talk
Nobody
to.
likes it.
Huh?
I said, and nobody likes it. I said, it's a hot topic, and nobody likes it.
Everybody's got an opinion on it, and none of it seems to be positive. You need to kind of wait things out a little bit. You don't know what's going to happen here. You don't want to leave questions. You don't want to leave any questions unanswered, whether you're a pro guy or a college guy. You want to answer questions for people who are going to pay you, whether it's a college scholarship or whether it's a signing bonus, to play for them, because they have to win games, and you need to have comfort with them, and they have to have comfort with you and what they're bringing into their campus or into their organization. So I feel like this is going to correct that a little bit. Junior college baseball across the country, man, I just got a big boost. I was a JC guy. I can't tell you how much I support junior college baseball,
Yep.
Not only from a maturity standpoint as a player, but from a mental standpoint of how much you get to play, have the same restrictions as Division I, and the opportunity to keep your options open, whether it's go to college baseball 1, 2, 3 or NAIA, or to go sign after
Yep.
8 years. So Division II making a pretty strong comeback. We got guys in Division III throw 95, 96 now, right?
For sure.
Division III making that comeback is going to get stronger. NAIA is going to get stronger. Division II is going to get stronger. And I feel like this gives us an opportunity not only to reset that fully committing a little bit, but it also gives us an opportunity to keep our options open, because scouts are going to go everywhere now. They have to go check out all the programs, because again, 5 years into 4, right? So committing as a freshman has a lot less value now than it did even 6 months ago.
Absolutely. And, let's hop into the pro side of things. And you've touched on a lot of it, beyond just charging your radar gun and making sure your stopwatch isn't broke. What the heck does a scout do?
This is with mine today. Just checked it. This thing worked. Scouts right now, and this just got lifted last week. We're talking about scouts in Major League can call players. They can watch videos of players. They can communicate. That's what they can do. They can have interaction with players they're considering for the draft and select to bring their organization. They cannot travel. They can't go see games. They can't go see workouts. They can't go see combines. We're all under a stay-at-home order. I think it's 97% of Americans are under a stay-at-home order. So you can't go to the Dominican Republic. You can't go to matter. Everything stops. So all they can do is do their homework on any available information, such as, the 10, 40 and 60, such as watching videos, such as reading online profiles. That's all they can do right now, and access whatever their organization model is of evaluating a player that takes away from seeing the game. And what they can't do is they can't go beyond that. And so they're kind of limited right now. And a lot of guys are doing everything they can to get as much information as they can. They're on the phone. They are looking at profiles like with your webs, with the NCSA. They're looking at history. They're looking at bats. They're looking at video. They're all available resources because that's what they have available. And the timeline to the draft is a little bit fluid. It was slated for, I believe, June 10th. I think a lot of that has to do, as far as when it occurs, a lot of that's going to have to do with when we're all able to get out there safely, right? I mean,
Right.
hopefully we're starting to plateau, and fingers crossed, and thank you if that's what's happening, and we can kind of move forward through this together. But right now we don't know yet. And so I feel like, June 10th, I wouldn't be surprised they left it right there. But they have the ability, I believe, to move it all the way to the back of July. And, depending on when Major League Baseball decides they can kick off with their own players, I think that has a lot to do with what we dictate for a draft, because their scouts will be able to get back out on the road at the same time.
Yeah, and that is a great segue into the next part. And I know we've touched on all of these, but, it really is a trickle-down effect. I mean, if you look at what was supposed to happen this year, the draft was supposed to be in Omaha, right? It was supposed to be in Omaha first time, and you saw this convergence and this working together between the NCAA, Division I, the CWS, and Major League Baseball is supposed to be this spectacular event. That's obviously not going to happen. We're going to go from 40 rounds down to, like you said before, somewhere between 5 and 20. So there's going to be a surplus players that aren't going to get that chance, or if they do, are going for pennies on the dollar compared to years prior. All the way down to the high school,
Right.
to the travel level. We're feeling it here in Illinois. There's talks of extending the high school season, if they restart it, into the end of June. And if that happens, then what happens to the travel programs and the tournaments that are already scheduled? So it really is a trickle-down effect. And I'll say selfishly, I'm most pissed because my T-ball season might get canceled and TJ is not going to get a shot. But that does, and we laugh about it, but if you think about it, growing up, the first time you get to put the uniform on, you put the batting helmet on, you go out there, and even if it is T-ball, that grows your love for the game. And I think I'm most fearful of this generation, this group of kids, that if they don't have that to turn to, they can't turn on the TV and see a ball game. If they can't do all these other things, how are they going to harness that? How are they going to develop that? How can we pull that out of them? And really, like, it starts at the top and goes right down to us and goes right down to my son. So I know there's been some talk the past few days about potentially opening up in Arizona, doing it in front of no fans. What do you think the likelihood of some of those things are, or the timeline around that, or what's your sense based on the guys that you've been around and talked to?
So this is going to, again, and this is going to be a little personal, after 2 decades plus in the game, as in professional baseball, you're gone from your family anyway. Okay. As a scout, I think the most I did was 225 days on the road. That was, at the highest level I reached scouting wise, which was cross-checking, right? And that, again, spanned anywhere from the Dominican to following our big league club and doing some, advanced work for the draft, not the draft, but trades, or things like that. So that's already 8 months a year, but you get to go home a little bit, so you're not gone for 4.5 months straight. The current plan suggests that if they were going to stay out there in Arizona, worst case scenario, they'd be there for 4.5 months, sequestered, no fans, playing a host of venues, which would include spring training ballparks as well as Diamondback Stadium out there. I don't know how well that's going to get met. Wives can't go, children can't see their parents or their fathers for a long time. I don't know that that's going to work. I think a likely scenario, and again, this does depend on the state of COVID-19 in Florida and what that looks like. A likely scenario would be to go to Arizona, have an abbreviated spring training, say, no more than 2 weeks. I know 3 weeks has been thrown out there. That's too long for me. I'd say 10 days is enough. These guys are going to be doing what they need to do, and they're all in it together. Expand the rosters. They've already agreed to do that. And you might see the first couple of weeks played in Arizona if everybody goes home. If we're reading the news and reading the press, and we're looking for the good part of it, the good part of it says that somewhere by July we should be back to normal. Okay, that's at the worst possible case scenario. Unless we just completely blow this thing back out of proportion, we should be good to go by July. I tend to think, and I have faith in our country, I tend to believe that we're going to be able to do this by June 1, is my opinion. I think MLB is siding with that. And I think they start playing in Arizona in June, transition to their home ballparks somewhere about the second or third week of June.
Seems reasonable. I'm going to stick by my original projection, and my flight is booked to LA to be sitting in Chavez Ravine for July 14th. So, either way, I think that would be an awesome thing. And I know how much you love LA.
Grew up there.
Grew up there, and that's about the extent to it. We won't elaborate too much on that because we don't want to offend anybody that's online. But either way, we need baseball back in our lives. I was joking around the other day. It was a saddening day when I didn't get to hear Vin Scully, sing me lullabies every night. Best thing, watching a West Coast game, when you're going to bed and just hearing him call a ball game. I thought that was bad, but now, with nothing on, only so many times you can watch Bull Durham and Sandlot and everything else before it gets a little old.
I think I mastered it. I think we're done.
I think a lot of people have, and I don't want to have this conversation now because that's exhausting in itself. That is exhausting. That'll be a new grading system, like an 80 Netflix watcher.
Right.
They watch actually everything. They're Hall of Fame material.
No doubt.
So, what's P15 doing now? And I know we've kind of touched on a lot of things here, but you mentioned before about the 400 or some odd players that you're probably going to settle in on for the 4 regional pre-draft workouts. You're not just setting the stage for that, but not doing your homework. How many players are you currently looking at? You said there's over 1,000 inquiries about it, but where are you getting them from? What's that database look like? How do people get involved in Program 15?
So with this, just focusing on the pre-drafts, with this, we've had the players, it's spread through whether it's other scouts around the community, given to players, and I try to stay away from names, right, with this type of stuff. It's spread through college coaches, it's spread through high school coaches, it's spread through travel teams, and of course the network of people that we've had involved in our stuff has applied as well. Whether it's a kid from the 2017 or 2018 that's a junior college that wants to have a chance to sign, or whether it's a kid again like Zach Veen who's very famous right now and has a chance going first 10 picks. I mean, those type of kids are that's how we're finding them. I got college coaches recommending kids. I've had people, other family members or people contact us directly. Hey, my son, what about this? Do you think about this? And go through the process. So it really is coming from all different sources. I'm glad to see the response because it means we're going to be able to help some players move forward. But that's how we're getting to that. The player ID function beyond that, the best way to do that is to visit our website or to go through NCSA or a partner program. Those are the 3 main entry points that we have for players we don't see in a game. Go through our website, contact us, go through your travel program. It's a partner program because we'll have a scout day with you. I see you there. And then, of course, our partner events, we're able to identify there. Again, Music City Classic is a big one that we are a part of. We're thankful to be a part of that because how many teams, how many regions that touches, Atlantic Coast Baseball, et cetera. So when you're able to get to those ways, we're able to identify you because we are looking for players. And then again, the developmental feedback, what we're doing right now is we are talking to players that we've had. Players are contacting us, whether it's videos or whether it is underclass participants or whether it's travel organization, partner organization kids like we've seen a couple of times. Hey, I'm working. What do you see? How can I help? What can we do? So much is built on this relationship that we have with these travel organizations that we try to work together. So if an Illinois Indian kid calls me and says, hey, I did this and this, or sends me an email, I respond. I make sure that you guys know, right? And we're working on that same page to be able to help that player move forward. We are getting some of that.
think you're freezing up on us, JB. Can you still hear us? Anybody else? Looks like he's frozen currently. So until Jeremy gets back on, I'll pick this up. And I think one of the things that we're being asked a lot lately is, what should players be doing? Are you back, Jeremy? JB? Nope. Logging out, logging back in. Oh, there you are. Still waiting on the audio. Got to get that audio back connected.
How about now?
There we go. Now you're back.
Okay.
But no, I mean, you're on a roll. We didn't miss too much there, but I think that kind of the big picture of this whole thing is, when you're in the pro scouting world, because you have, in many cases, in many parts of the country, such a large area to cover, so many players, both the college and the high school game and the summer events. Because you have all that, there's a lot of players that they don't get to see until really late in the timeline. And that's
Right.
excluding, the top 3 to 5 rounds, right? Like, we've identified those guys. You have a pretty good sense of who might fall into that category. But what's really interesting is, because of the relationship with the travel programs, because of the open ID events, because of the partner tournaments and the national, you're able to see a lot of guys that you can project a little bit more out on. You can see some undersized guys that they're going to grow into their body. You can see loose arms, and it kind of takes us back to where the college recruiting was and where the scouting was years ago, before this whole thing blew up. And a lot of the major league clubs, they're not going to invest in that because, again, there's just so much to cover. But you're creating an opportunity for a lot of these kids and programs to say, hey, like, let's follow up with this. Like, let's keep an eye on this. Let's put an asterisk next to this name, because in a couple of years, he's going to be really, really damn good. So we need to follow him. So I think that's the gap that this has really filled in this whole ecosystem, and something that's truly pretty special.
Well, I appreciate that. That's the whole point. Absolutely.
That's the whole point. And one of the things that I keep going back to when parents are asking, or players are asking, what they should be doing, my opinions and my suggestions haven't changed with or without this, right? The only difference is that before it'd say, well, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that, I don't have time to upload video, I don't have time to reach out to a coach. You got nothing but time right now, right? I don't have time to get in the weight room. You have nothing but time. And I think what we're also going to see is everybody's concerned about the roster sizes and everything else. This is going to be a great equalizer. Some of those kids that aren't really motivated, some of those kids that aren't as hungry as others, that need a coach looking over their shoulder, they're going to drop off and maybe find other interests. And those kids that really want it, the cream's going to rise to the top, right? So we preach it so much in baseball, because it is a everyday sport, right? You get out there every day. I hate the word grind, but it is, and consistency is going to be key. And that's not only athletic. And I want to touch on this real quick, because I think this is important to a lot of the kids that have logged in, because it's really easy with the e-learning and the at-home stuff to recognize the fact that, hey, guys, this isn't a break. This is an opportunity to get ahead, right? An opportunity to get ahead. If your test scores weren't right there, and you're worried if you're going to be an NCAA qualifier, if you're not getting the financial aid that you should from a different school, try to pull those grades up, right? Use the resources that are made available to you. I highlighted Method Test Prep down there at the bottom. That's a partner of ours at NCSA. For those that do use NCSA, hop on there. You get free tests that you get to take, practice exams. You get to go through some different courses, because I can't tell you how important that is. Kids are bummed that the ACT was canceled last weekend, that the SAT coming up in May has already been canceled. It's a bummer. No, it's not. You get a whole additional month or 2 months to study up for this thing. So if you were planning on getting one score, make yourself that much better, as you go into the next one. So just something that, I really felt when I was looking at some of these kids that are on here tonight, class of 2020, 2021s, stuff like that, use this as an opportunity, not as a hindrance. The other thing with athletics, and, you could talk about this as well, is, college coaches, scouts, they've been through this. They've seen so many players over the years. right? They know that you're going to be a bigger, faster, stronger senior 18-year-old than you are as a 15, 16-year-old. Again, they're like, oh, I'm not playing games. How's anybody going to see me? Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe rather than getting exposed, like you want exposure, you might get exposed if you were out there this year and realize where you need to pick up your shortcomings, right? If you're a little light on the fastball, if you're, little undersized or, don't have the pop with the bat, hit it hard right now when everybody else might be sitting playing Xbox. Like get yourself ahead, because what if the season started tomorrow, right? Like that's the answer for everything. Well, when's it's going to start? Well, pretend it's going to start tomorrow, and how would that change your mindset? So anything, I know part of scouting specifically, like you talk so much about makeup, anything on that you want to add?
Tagged all the time on Twitter in videos, and I flip them and I like them, and I put it out there because if a player is going to go that far with it, I want to make sure he's seen. But what I watch the video, I want to see what they're doing. I want to see how they're going about it, whether it's just a couple of swings or whether it's an athletic approach. I got sent a video I didn't post today, in a text message of a kid pushing an F-150. So the gyms are closed down, right? But dad got in the F-150 and kept his foot on the brake just enough so the kid had to push, was able to get a weight workout. Those are all opportunities to improve, and that stuff does show back up when, I like to say the lights go on, right? When the lights go on and people are watching you again, and it matters. All the stuff you've done when nobody's watching, when you're not supposed to be watching, which you have more of that time right now, comes out to play. We can tell. And so much of this is done, by yourself. Baseball is a solitary game. So much is done by yourself that you have to be able to do that.
For sure. And I was talking to a kid last week, and he's like, I don't have a squat rack. I don't have weights. I don't have that. I'm like, well, dude, there's this thing called gravity. And if you just jump up and down, it's working against you. There's some resistance for you. And, that's what people don't realize. There's heavy stuff all over your house. Go out, pick up a rock. I saw a video of, I forget who he was, minor leaguer, I think, with the Astros or something, maybe not the Astros, but he was squatting a wild hog, right? You see that one through in the back of his truck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just stuff like that. If you want it, you'll figure out a way. There's kids all over the world that have been doing that for years. And that's probably one of the things I'll say, one of the biggest knock on the US born players is they're not resourceful enough. They're kind of spoon fed. Like they got things handed to them. You want to figure out how to succeed once you get to the minor leagues. You want to figure out how to succeed in life, but you got to be resourceful. You got to make do with what you have.
100%.
So last thing here, and I'll fly through this pretty quickly, but it is important, and I want to definitely touch on it, is how we can help at NCSA. And, a few of the big points, the online profile. JB, you said about kids sending you their video. Yep. That's great. But if you click on that, and you're a college coach, you want to be able to see their transcripts, their grades. You want to be able to know how to contact them. You want to see how to contact their coaches. And there's just a lot of gaps to fill in. And when coaches are going through, thousands of videos and a whole bunch of players, you need to pull your stuff all together in one place. And whether you're doing that on your own, or you're using technology like ours, it has to be done.
Sure.
The college search, I'll skip ahead to that. So there you can see an example of a profile. The college search, same thing. Mom and dad are probably sitting there on Google, like college baseball, looking at different things. If you log into it, any free user in our system gets access to the entire college search map, right? So if you want to stay close to home because you love mama's cooking, and you're a Louisiana boy, then you can quickly click on the state of Louisiana, pull up every school in the state, with a bunch of background information on them, and then also see who from our network has went on to play at that school too. So you can connect some dots there. The other thing is the recruit match technology, and that takes that college search to the next level, right? So you put in your preferences, the schools put in their recruiting needs, you put in what type of academics you have, and not only is it going to tell you about the school, but it's going to tell you the likelihood that they are to recruit a player like you. Okay, and I've worked with a number of players from our program and from outside of it that ended up at schools they never even knew about because it showed up high in the match percentage. And I think that's something that there are so many great travel programs out there, so many great high school coaches, but they have certain pipelines, right? and hey, I trust this coach, I know this is a good fit for you, which are all good and great and all true in many cases. But why limit yourself to, maybe 100 schools or 150 that your coach is aware of, when you can open up the whole 1600 plus and see what might be a good fit and figure out who has financial aid, who has resources, who has your major that you're looking for. Just so many things out there that I think that they can really do to make that happen. So if you're not familiar with any of that and you're not currently an NCSA member, it's been at the bottom of the screen the whole time, and I'm kind of rushing through this because I want to get to the Q&A and because there's a number of questions that have come in. But make sure to schedule that recruiting assessment.
Well, I'll interject one line here, Nelson. This was the tools with NCSA was why I was so interested with working with NCSA. It's this type of presentation, it's this type of access, it's this type of direct communication, the ability to narrow down your own school, your own regions, right? Find your fit. That was why I want to be involved with NCSA from the beginning, right? And so for me, those are very valuable. I encourage everybody to take advantage of them. I would have, if I had at the time, if it was around and I had the need to do so, I would have done it for sure.
Yeah, we were still waiting for dial-up internet when that was going down.
Yeah, I remember.
I talk about it all the time. Hey, when I was trying to send out my videos, I remember going to, do you guys have Venture, the store? And yeah, I remember driving to Venture and riding my bike actually and getting like a 10-pack of VHS tapes, and then going to my grandmother's house and taking her VCR and hooking the two up together to make copies of the videos.
Right.
I mean, you guys got it simple now. Everybody has a high definition camera in their pocket. You post stuff up in a minute. But if you haven't done it already, go through that recruiting assessment. They're going to show you the different aspects that we just looked at, how it applies to you, and if you're interested and you want to take it a next step further, they're also going to show you the different memberships that we have at NCSA. So that's just the same thing, recruit P15 797979. And then if there's any coaches on the line, one of the things that has been important to me, being a former high school coach running a travel program, is our team edition product. When I first came into NCSA, my big question is, or my big statement really was, this is amazing, but the reason nobody trusts NCSA, or at the time I felt, was because we can't see what's going on behind the wall, right? And I was adamant. I was, like, we have to get something that's going to give coaches a look into that, because once you see it as a coach and you realize the benefits and how much easier it's going to make your life,
Yep.
You don't want to go back, right? Because it helps you stay organized, helps you see what your players are doing. So coaches that are online, if you have questions about that, my email's there, put it down in the chat box, and I can walk you through exactly how to use that. So with that, because we're closing in on the hour mark here, I want to get through some of these questions. So let's see what we have. One of them is my son is a junior in high school. With school being out, no baseball going on at the moment. What should he be doing with himself, or what should he be doing to get himself out there to colleges? I think we kind of answered that one. Above and beyond anything we talked about, anything you could think of, Jeremy?
No, that's right. I mean, that's right. It's actually, make the most of every opportunity you have, whether it's emailing, whether it's videos, whether it's online profiles, whether it's camps, whether it's whatever you can do to answer any questions to every school will help.
For sure. And those two things, I mean, if you can get that video and that transcript together, that's the golden ticket. That's going to give you some pretty quick feedback on schools that would be interested in you based on your response to that. Can you, or these are both kind of the same question, talking about the impact on the NCAA and junior colleges for the high school graduates of 2021. And then another person asked the same thing, just even going further on beyond that. And, I think that is the big fear for many, and rightfully so, is, are these rosters going to stay big? What's going to happen in 2022? Like NCAA said in 2021, they're going to lift the scholarship limits and the roster sizes. But what happens beyond that? And again, nobody knows it. We can all kind of make our own projections and our own guesses at it. But I think just as many people that are going to stay, like I said before, this is going to be a time when I think a lot of kids are going to fall out, and even at the college level, even at some Power 5 schools, right? You got some guys that are juniors or seniors that they have the chance to come back, but maybe they have aspirations to go into medical school, or maybe they find themselves buried positionally behind a few other guys. And maybe the love, not for the game, but maybe the love for the idea of playing there right now isn't there. So they're going to drop out. So I don't think that there's a direct answer to that, but I do believe in the idea that it's going to self-correct, over the next couple of years and find itself in a pretty good place. Let's see what else we got here. There was a question. We actually have a statement from Mr. Steve Trombley on Facebook. He said that my advice for players is to be proactive and don't sit back waiting and hoping for something to come your way. And
Steve Trombley is with Trombley Baseball. He is a founding member of the Program 15 Future Stars Series partner programs, a regional director in Southern California, and has been our national team manager the last 2 years. One at Camelback Ranch, one at Fenway Park, and he's slated to do it again this year, right? So Steve's helped doing this over 20 years, helped a lot of players get to college. Very passionate, he's a very valued member of what we do. So glad to see Steve chiming in, because whatever he says, people need to listen to.
For sure. And there's not many people that have been around this whole thing as long as he has and as close to it at multiple levels. This is a very specific question. I'll let you answer this and put yourself in these shoes. What should a redshirt sophomore JUCO player do? He's touching low 90s, but has no stats because the season was cut short. Beyond just posting the videos, should he come back to? He really can't go back to the junior college, I guess, because he's a redshirt sophomore JUCO. This is in his third year. How does he get his name out there? What are some good things for him to do? Is it a prospect camp? Is it, the college camps, reaching out to coaches directly? That's a tough one, but what do you got on it?
I would say to reach out to coaches directly. I would say to attend events where you can get seen by scouts. You got to, major league scouts. You got to be. That's a tough spot. It depends if you're going to give you an eligibility year back. They might give you an eligibility year back because we're pitching this year and it got cut short. I would look to advance to any level I could if I wanted the next step, and I would trust the process from there. It would be seen for sure. Contact coaches, online profiles, videos, anything you can do nowadays. Looking at Rapsodo or looking at the flight scope stuff or TrackMan stuff. Anything that can give some quantifiable information as well will help. Anything you can do to get that out. It's a tough spot, but again, if you're pitching or playing this year, the same things the NCAA and NJCAA are doing would extend to you as well.
Absolutely. And like you said, about Rapsodo and some of the other technologies, I think that's the thing that people understand is that if used properly and if used as part of the story, can be super beneficial, but it can't be the be all end all, right? Sure. So if you have great spin rate and you're kind of a jerk as a teammate and don't work really hard and all those other things, it's not going to serve you really well. Or if you can't locate it, ball spinning, but you can't locate, also not going to help you. So again, I guess the point is that the more of a picture that you can paint of you as a complete person and player and present that to the coach, doors are going to open.
Nelson, holy cow. It cut out for a minute. Did you get to Logan Mahaffey's question? Did you answer that one?
We touched on it. I mean, you can go ahead and elaborate on that. So it says how many years as far as high school recruiting will this have an impact on? Will the trickle down effect impact the 2022s, 23s, 24s? So what do you got on that?
Well, first of all, Logan, how you doing? Logan is was with NorCal Baseball, and I was in Kingwood. He's been in our events for a couple of years now, so I know Logan personally. I think it's going to have an effect as far as when you're going to select your options. I don't think anybody knows anything past this first year. How this first year plays out and what Major League Baseball does with the draft, who signs, that's going to dictate the next couple of years. So do I think there's some trickle down effect? Absolutely. I don't know how far it's going to go yet. I do think, though, it's going to trickle down for 3 years. Is my guess is 3 years to straighten itself all the way up. My guess.
Absolutely. Another question on here, it says, after your initial email and video to a college coach, if he doesn't answer, how often should you recontact him? And when should you take the hint that he just doesn't have interest in you? And, it's so often when I'm talking to groups of players or families individually, look at this like any other relationship, right? Look at this if whether it's a friend, if it's a girl you want to ask to the homecoming dance, there are a lot of fish in the sea, so to speak. There's, again, over 1,600 schools that have college baseball programs. And if you're going to be constantly pestering the same handful of schools without looking at everything else that's out there,
Sure.
then I think that, you're probably barking up the wrong tree. And, Al, I don't know what grade you are or your son is right now, or what graduating class, but, if you could spend the next 30 days, well, we know we have this mandated kind of indoor time to spend, or this, quarantine time, and you just contacted 3 schools every day, that gets you to 100 really quick. And if you have 100 schools, I'm fairly confident, if it's a good representation of different division levels and, competitive levels, that there's going to be some out there that are interested in you. Okay. And it's kind of like the value of a baseball card. It's worth whatever someone will pay for it. And the same thing holds true for what schools you could potentially play at. Look at the ones that have interest in you, and then work your way out from there. What type of videos are important to college coaches, and how long should the videos be? So, Jeremy, I'll let you talk a little bit, because there's a couple pieces that apply to the events, right? You have the Scoutcast stuff that goes out with the ID events. We also have Flow that's covering the nationals and international week and everything else, which is more game footage. But what would you look for as a college coach or a scout?
I want to see playable. I want to see some dry, meaning I call them static swings, or BP, or a few ground balls, or a couple of balls out of the hand if you're on the mound. Then I want to see some game video. I want to see footage best I can. I want to see what you're doing and how the things that I have on your subjective grades or your analytical numbers match up to how they're going to play in the game. Because ultimately, how you perform is what matters, right? I don't want to see swings that are enhanced straight uphill to the sky. I don't want to see that. That's not going to work for me. I don't want to see a 95-mile-an-hour arm that's 8 rows deep. I don't want to see that either. I want to see you execute. I want to see snapshots of what I can get, of performance and statistics to back up the tools and performance you're showing me on video. And all of that is available to do, whether it's in a video format or with something that accompanies that video when you're sending it to coaches.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, recognize that as a recruitable athlete, you're your own brand, right? Your name, your ability, the way you treat people, like you are representing your brand, and you want to put your best commercial out there, right? So if you're a speed guy, definitely put yourself going first to third, getting on the first baseline first. If you're a power guy, show you losing some balls off the fence. What happens in that first 30 seconds of a video is going to keep them watching, the rest of it. So put your best foot forward. And, I would say in total, if your video is beyond 2-3 minutes, nobody's watching that long. So you don't have to make a Steven Spielberg 3-part series that are 3 hours long each. Keep it short, keep it simple, highlight what you're best at.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. I saw Tim Grant raised his hand. Nelson, I don't know how to call on him, but Tim Grant is with the Lobos, the partner program out of San Antonio. He raised his hand a couple times.
Yeah. Maybe he's just giving us a high five, giving us a salute. If you got a question, or if, you want to give a statement, whatever you need, man, definitely leave it in that chat box or text Jeremy or I, and we can answer those.
Diesel Clark is somebody I know exceptionally well. Diesel asked you a question there as well. When would the class of 2024 start in CSA?
Yeah, so for NCSA, anybody age 13 and up can start up with their profile, and there's no benefit to waiting. I'll say, get accustomed to it. The program, the website is dynamic, where it adapts to where you're at in the recruiting process. So at a minimum, start poking around, start following some of the prompts, and uploading some of your information, and realize that it's not something that you spend 4 hours on a Sunday doing and it's done. it's a constant work in progress. And if you can spend a few minutes in there a week, you're going to see the benefit of it. Tim did make a comment, actually. I see it in here. He says, go where they want you, and that's a key statement. Go where you're wanted. Don't be barking up that tree. Here's another great question from a well-known coach here in the Chicagoland area, Eddie Holbrook, asking about players reclassifying. And if there's any Florida people on the line, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the state of Florida is actually giving everyone the chance to do that, to reclassify, regardless, for a variety of reasons. So it is posing an interesting opportunity or an option. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you said it really well, man. I mean, it's not a whole lot more to say about that than what you just did. So I'll leave it right there.
Yeah. So it's, it depends on the player. If you're a pro guy, the clock's running, so you want to be younger, and there'd probably be no reason to reclassify. If you're physically a little bit behind, like I'm a late June birthday, so I was always like developmentally was behind a little bit some of the other guys, just my body growth. So maybe if you're on the younger end of the spectrum, it might be a feasible thing for you to do. And more questions coming in.
Yeah, there's a couple other guys in here that are P15 guys that have participated. Kyler Arias. Hi, Kai. How you doing? Kai's in Wisconsin. He was a member of PBA Wisconsin up there when we first started. He came to the Cincinnati Regional Combine again, trying to figure out his fit. That's a great question right there, Nelson. I mean, you can look at it from the travel program perspective right there, and I look at it from our side of it, what we do with events that go kind of around that with the tournament, but that's a pretty good question.
Yeah. So when it comes to, and Kyler's question is, he's gotten a lot of invites to different showcases that are going on during the summer, and kind of balancing that versus travel team schedule. And what I will say when it comes to showcases or camps or combines, you have to be really clear on why you're going, right? And I think if it's just to get verified numbers, if that is the sole purpose, and you're going to go somewhere and miss a weekend of playing games just to get a 60 time, to get a ball exit speed, to get a throwing velocity and all that, you can invest a couple $100 and get a pocket radar, get a stopwatch, and capture some of that, and not leave your team hanging, and get those reps on the field. If you're going for more of a developmental opportunity, or if there's a school in attendance that you're already talking to, that's a different story, because if you're already kind of down the path with the college and they want to see you live and in action, and they're not going to be in the same state or the same area that your team's playing in, well, then you have to weigh that out, and you have to be, you have to communicate clearly and in advance with your coach, with your team, because you don't want to leave them shorthanded, because as much as college coaches want great athletes and great players, they want good teammates and a dude that's going to fit in their culture. So there's a variety of reasons, and you have to talk through those.
From our side of it, we try to schedule around tournaments. I don't try to do anything that conflicts with a player playing games in the summer. I think that so many of those experiences are valuable for many reasons that go beyond the field. And so I don't, we'll work with our partner events. We'll do stuff the day of right before an event, or we'll do stuff in between events when they happen, like Music City Classic this year. Should that everything be okay there? We'll do something between their first week and their second week, right in the middle there. So we try to make sure that players can play with their teams. And I feel like that, I hate to say it because I hate the term, but showcase providers, and what we do combines is different, but showcase providers are ones that are focused on the individual players, should be respectful to that as much they can, for sure.
Right. That's why I said there's a few different buckets there. And if you want to ask more specifics offline, I'd be happy to talk through those with you. Logan asked a question here. It said, what would you say is the biggest turnoff for college coaches? And in my opinion, in my experience, it would be we'll use the term loosely, but maybe the overzealous, overbearing parent. Right, guys? Remember, hey, you got something that you want to say there, but I'll just say that, what I've seen is that, go ahead.
No, I just want to say something about Logan. Hi, Logan. Logan's a Georgia Bomber, and Logan's a underclass invite. My man here has major league stuff. I'm saying that to whoever's listening. Logan Bogue
Big
has a
time.
chance to pitch in big leagues. Okay. He's
That's
uncommitted. I don't know why, probably because his own choice. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in our nationals this summer, as well as the underclass event. But this is the type of kid Logan is, right? I mean, he's a kid, he's weighing his options, he's thinking things through. He's
sure.
trying to make sure that he is fitting within a culture that what he brings to that's Logan. That's why he's asking that question. This guy's gonna throw 98 miles an hour one day with a breaking ball, with feel. In fact, we're gonna be talking about him potentially and what he's gonna do on TV, like for real, you know? And so I hear that and I see that type of question, and that just makes me smile, because that's the right question. What are we going to do? What's going to turn off coaches and scouts? What are they going to not want to be involved? How can I make myself valuable to their program? Right? I'll let you answer, but I just want to give a little bit of who Logan is, because Logan's one of my favorites.
It's a big statement. That is a big statement coming out of Jeremy. I can't even create a player on MLB The Show that throws 98, and he's saying you got that in your back pocket. But, Logan, I'll say that, when it comes to schools, that they're recruiting men, right? And we talk a lot about just having a professional mindset and going about your business. And you don't want to be too much. You don't want to be too little. Just go about your business with that mindset. When they contact you, when they're calling you, get back to them. They just want a guy that's going to put his work in, be a great teammate. And, I said about the parent thing before, but that's it. They're recruiting you as a man, and they want you to step up and be one.
Yeah, no question. And I'll say this to you guys too. And I'm not going to say who, because it's irrelevant for the moment, but you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching. On this chat, there may or may not be a VP of scouting for Major League Club.
There's some names that have popped up both on Facebook and in this chat. And I'm like, all right, I see it.
You never know. You never know, right? And he's listening. He's watching the questions, and he's soaking this in. Blake Simpson, who is a member of the Ontario Blue Jays, he's been on this thing. He's going to come to the World Combine, right? Kick and really hit. He fits with that reclassify situation, right? That you talked about. He should reclassify. Yep. They're younger there. He's lost a year now. Probably should have reclassified anyway, but he's got some real offensive ability. So, you never know who's watching. You never know who's getting a feel for you. And so much of that's done from the neck up. That these type of questions are all very valuable, because people can see them, and having the desire to fit within a culture, to be a winning part of an organization or a program, separates you from so many players out there who only focus on what the game can do for them. You're asking what you can do for the game. That's a totally different mindset. That's attractive.
Yep. And I mean, that's so well put. I mean, we gave our introductions at the beginning of this, and I think that's what the commonality here is. We find great enjoyment in giving back to a game that gave us so much. And if you're going into the game with that mentality, then you're going to be in it for a while.
Yeah, no doubt.
We had one that came in on Facebook. It said, "What's the most important role for the high school coach to play during the recruiting process and with everything going on?" So, get any feedback or any comments on that?
High school coaches have a tough battle, because they have to work with class, they have to work with grades, they have to work with every single day, they have to work with baseball seasons, they have to work with development, they have to work, all of that condensed into a very short window. The best thing that high school coaches can do is be good at that craft of developing young men, first and foremost, and developing players in a way that's going to give them value, and working together with their summer team. 98% of the people out there don't play for their high school coaches in the summer, right? So we need to work with something that the relationships are there, that the player has a consistent support system, consistent development plan, consistent growth track. And I think high school coaches are so important in that, because they're with those kids from, say, the first day of school to the end of the season, right? So they get to see all these different things happening 5 days a week. And the high school coach is a big role in that. And that's, to me, their biggest focus.
And just like you said about Logan before, for a coach to have that mindset and be concerned about his players and what he can do to help is so important. And that's the thing that I keep telling the coaches that I'm talking to is, listen, as much as you are a baseball coach, you're so much more to those guys, and you are part of their support system. And for some of these kids, for some of you guys that are even on the line right now, like, it's all you got. right? So if you could be there for them to talk to, for for all those things that they might not be getting at home or they're uncertain of, that I think that's the biggest thing for me growing up with my coaches, and I think that's the best thing that any high school coach can do for their players. Glenn asked a question about the reclassification again. That is a by state thing. I know you mentioned the Blue Jay player before. I know in Canada they do that often because of when school starts, and there are a lot of younger players. The eligibility relief at the college level is for all college players. So I would check with the state and somebody there to see what's possible wherever you live. Man, oh man, lots of people with questions. Come on, man, Al Benjamin on Facebook Live. You ever play with him?
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Funny dude. We were together in, I think, Kansas City.
Al and I used to prepare together every game in Newark.
There you go. Let's see. Going through these, what showcases would you recommend going to? Sam, look at where you're at, man. We don't want to, again, like Jeremy said before, don't like to use the word showcase as much, but I think that's really the combine, the open ID, the scout day, the whole concept of it is that, yes, you're getting the basic things that you would pay multiple, hundreds of dollars, sometimes $1,000 to go to one of those events. You're getting those. But in addition to that, the World Series rings, the staff, the scouting background, the college coaches, the partner programs, everybody's pouring themselves into giving you more of a development plan and saying, okay, well, here's where you're at. Here's where you want to go. Now let's figure out how you're going to get there. Okay, so if you're interested in, the P15 events, definitely follow up with us. You can reply to the email that went out, invite to you. My email address is on there, and we'll get you set up. Got that one.
I see a couple other familiar names.
Shout them out. Yeah, I'm going through one, you go through the other, and feel free to.
Well, I'll let you keep going down. When you get to them, I'll look. I see Lawson Gailey on here. That's one I know. How you doing, Lawson? Lawson's got a pretty good question. What are some of the top things to look for and think about when committing to a school? And you know what, Nelson? I'm going to let you start with that one. That's a pretty individual deal.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it in three parts, right? You got to look at the academic side, you look at the athletic side, and you look at the social side too, or the kind of social emotional. And geographics are going to play a big part into that. Demographics. If you're from the Southeast and you're thinking about going to the Northeast, it's a different atmosphere, right? If you're a West Coast kid coming to Chicago, it's going to be different, right? The weather is going to be different. So I think you kind of look at the big things that you can easily cross different states or different regions or different things out of. Then you look at the academic piece, because if you're going there and they're going to help fund a portion of your college, you want to walk away with that piece of paper that says that you can go out and work someplace in a career field that you want to work in. So I would definitely look at that. And lastly, ask yourself the question, do I want to sit on the bench?
Yeah,
right? I know you want to get on the field.
Lawson's got some upside too. He's from Georgia Bombers, also in Georgia. Saw him at our scout day down there, and he's got some upside on the mound. He's got some things he can do. A lot of those 2022s down there that they have with that class or in that program are still searching, and they can all play, man. They can all play. They'll be there in Lake Charles this summer. Lawson, academics, right? Academics and proximity to family, if that matters, and athleticism as far as we'll be able to play, roster sizes. Those are all things you want to look at. What I would remind everybody here, and Nelson, you and I are living proof of this, is that at some point the playing baseball leaves you.
Sure.
Right? It leaves you, and you need to have yourself in a position where the preparation you do for baseball, with college baseball, and if it's pro baseball at a high school, then fine. But whatever point that is, that whatever you're doing in college prepares you to go forward. It prepares you to go forward with life. And so, academics to me, man, I mean, they're very, very, very important as far as not only what you're doing in high school to make sure you can go to college in the first place, but they're very important from a standpoint of deciding what you want to do with your life, right? Even if that's general ed, and man, this will shock you. I know, Nelson, but speech communication, interpersonal communication, right? Conflict management. That's what I studied. And I went to a school that I could do all that, right? So I give myself an opportunity to go on past baseball, and whether it was broadcasting or baseball analysis, or whether it was being an attorney, if I chose to do that, anything that would give me an opportunity to move my life forward after baseball that I was interested in. So to me, that's first and foremost. And then the other things tend to fall in the line. It's right up there with opportunity to play. Absolutely.
Yep. And just something for everybody that's on the line here, realize that this recruiting process in itself is a transferable skill. And what I mean by that is when you're going through and you're researching colleges and you're doing your outbound communication and reaching out to those coaches, and you're sitting through visits or phone calls 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, or 10, 15 years from now, if you have the chance to play pro ball, you're going to be doing the same thing when you look for a career, when you look for a job. So the more that you develop and hone those skills now, the more prepared you're going to be later on. So kind of embrace it and realize that, this is going to help you as much as sitting through algebra class or chemistry or whatever the school subject is. This is something that's very real and something you have to do, the rest of your life. Just any other names out that jumped out to you, or any other questions that I'm missing?
I think Rob's got a pretty good question there. I think that's pretty good.
Oh, Rob. The question is, how important do you think select fall high school baseball will be for college this year? Get a full summer, I guess not as much, but do you think more colleges will be out during this fall? I would say kind of yes and no. What you have to think about is that the recruiting calendars did change to keep a lot of the college coaches on campus to work with their players during the fall. And as much as recruiting and the recruiting classes are going to be impacted, them getting to know their own players, right? There's freshmen who are in their first year in a program that didn't have a full season under their belt to show the college staff what they're capable of. So I think you'll find with the increased roster sizes and also the the limit or the limitations that have been placed on them because of the shortened spring, they'll probably spend a lot of time with their players. But I think that there are going to be some needs that will have to be met, and you'll see a lot more events that will pop up once this thing is lifted. So anything I missed there, or anything different from your point of view, Jeremy?
That's perfect. That's good.
I don't think I've ever had so many questions on one of these chats. And Jeremy's like, hey, how long is, do you think we'll be on? I'm like, yeah, 40, 45
you know what,
minutes.
Though? I mean, I'll stay on and answer questions as long as people have them. Because, when you ask a question, you have a question, it's going to help. Somebody else has that same question, whether they're thinking about it or not. Right? It's in there somewhere. So sometimes you'll ask a question and it'll trigger something for somebody else. And that's usually how these things keep going. I'm gonna have a little bit of pride here, though, in our partner programs, man, and some of the players that we've interacted, because, man, our guys are pretty good. Our guys are pretty good. They think the game. They want to know the game. They want to advance. They want to be part of culture. So important to want to be part of a culture and do what you can do for the ball club. And Lawson's like that, and Logan's like that, and Blake is like that, and Kai's like that, and Diesel's like that. And these guys are all like that, both Logans, Logan Mahaffey and Logan Bogue. So, it's good to see that. Our partner programs, Tim Grant and Steve Trombley and the other guys that are here, the Illinois Indians, those guys that are part of this thing. It's so much about giving back. It's such a family-oriented atmosphere. To see those guys doing that, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Absolutely. More coming in. Victor asked a question regarding multi-sport athletes. And not coincidentally, you actually tweeted out yesterday about multi-sport. Where was he committed to?
Nate McCollum to Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, playing both. Yeah, playing both at the next level. And I can I'll give my personal feedback. I look back to high school, and some of my fondest memories were on the football field.
Mhm.
with guys that I went to battle with, and a lot of us also played baseball or played different sports. Um, don't rob yourself of experiences because you're fearful of what might happen in the future. If he loves both sports and he wants to continue doing so, then support it. And if there's really a future in baseball, and he does these other things that we're talking about, and gets his name and his video and stuff out there, he's going to find the right fit. And I was originally committed to play Division III football, and then went the baseball route. Um, so I just wouldn't limit yourself or limit those experiences because of, well, what if I don't play? Am I going to get this opportunity? Follow your heart. If you want to put the pads on, I'd say go for it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this about me, but when I was in junior at New Mexico State, um, there were some questions that I wanted to answer about my athleticism over the summer, and so I went out and played football, and so played football at New Mexico State, and I ended up just it became a conflict between baseball. Believe it or not, if I was going to go back to school, baseball versus football, so I ended up walking away before making a decision because I wanted to commit full time to what I was really going to do and not play. I wasn't playing the NFL. But I will tell you that, two-sport athlete, man, some of that stuff I had in the football field in college was some of the best fun I ever had, even just for the few weeks in the fall. It was just all summer and into August before we started playing games. It was great. It was great.
Can't teach size. You have that going for it. Not all of us have that going for us. Let's see. Answer that one. What are the best? Here's one from a freshman. When's the best time to start contacting college coaches? Here's the thing: is that most college coaches, they're working off lists, right? They kind of build them up by grad class up until, I'd say beginning of junior year. Then they start whittling them down. And the important thing is to get your name on those lists. So the things that we've talked about earlier here, your video, your grades, transcripts, put that information in their hands and let them add you to that database, and then follow up and let them know where you're going to be playing, inquire about how their season's going. But I wouldn't jump the gun and, as a freshman, ask about their 2024 or 2023 recruiting class. Let it be a slow burn. See what that interest level is and kind of cast a wide net now, right? Because you don't know how your son is going to develop. You don't know what his development timeline is going to look like. And you want to, heck, there might be some guys that are assistants at one school at a different division that might end up being head coaches 3-4 years from now. And the impression that you make now is going to last with them. And that's going to open or close doors down the line. Okay, so start putting your info out there. Go ahead.
That goes both ways. We talk about social media so much, right? And somebody sent me a text a minute ago about reminding players about social media, and they're right. Social media can work for you, it can work against you. You guys got to be careful with what you post. You got to be careful with what you say. You want to treat people with respect, because that's a turnoff, as Logan Bogue asked earlier. Turnoff for coaches. It gives a lot of insight in your character. People want to bring good character athletes into their programs or into their organization. So, everything you're doing now, impression-wise, return emails, return phone calls, return text messages. If a coach, you email a coach and he doesn't reply to you ever, tells you what you need to know about that coach. Don't worry about it. Even if it's the program, you don't want to be part of that. It's a lot has to do with your character and how you treat people. And there's so many different windows into who you are. Be mindful of that stuff as well, because it can work against you. Those impressions you make now.
Absolutely. Kyler asked another great question. He's like, coming from a position where there's some serious twos in the 21 class, how important is it to become a 2 or even 3-way player? And I could take that and run with it because, I had the chance to play all 9 positions at a decently high level.
Okay.
But that's what I joke around about all the time, is that the only thing I did great is everything very average. And, that opened up doors. I can guarantee you that I would never have the chance to play professional independent baseball if it wasn't for my versatility. There's nothing that really jumped off the page from my skill set, but my love for the game, my willingness to try anything. I never caught until my senior year, my 5th year in college, and that's what I ended up signing a free agent contract with the Astros, as a catcher. And it's just because if there was a chance for me to put a bat in my hand and get in the lineup, I'd say heck yeah. And when you look at the highest levels of baseball, and Jeremy, I'm sure you could talk to this when you're in draft rooms and everything else. Look at the number of, especially like catchers. Look at guys that are on the mound right now, and look where they started. You'll see a lot of middle guys kind of work their way around the diamond to the corners and sometimes behind
Yeah.
the plate. You'll see a lot of second basemen. Like you look at like a guy like Mookie Betts, was a middle infielder, ends up being a Gold Glove right fielder. So your ability to do a lot of things is going to keep your stick in the lineup. It's going to open up some doors and help you make a team, right? Because
Yeah, I mean, there's your main role, which your tools and skills say you need to have a main role. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that's a shortstop. But there's only one guy who can play short, and
there's not many of them that can really play short either.
No question. Then there's a fallback role, which means something you can do to help the club, and sometimes that's a utility guy. Sometimes that is backup catcher. Sometimes that is, 1 year for me, Nelson, I was at home and after getting released, and I got a call, say, hey, can you play third base? And I said, I will by the time I get there. You know what I mean? It was one of those type of things, and you pick the glove up and you figure it out, and you have that type of value because you got to keep your bat in the lineup.
Sure.
So, there's so much that comes into the versatility, and the best way to do that is to continue to work at all positions. Kai, for you, it's work at both corners and work behind the plate and stay athletic and work on those type of things so that no matter what you're doing, when your coach or manager looks at the roster, he says, hey, Kai's not going to catch every day here, but you know what? I'm pencil him in at first base. He's going to go play some third. I'm going to be my DH one day. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're in the lineup 5 days, right? Find different ways to impact that club and have fallback roles that have value. And the draft room, man, that goes into drafting, right? If he's not going to play short, he better have enough bat to play second. Can you move him to third base? Does he have enough athleticism to play there? Or are we really limited in going across the diamond to first base? The bat has to carry there, but you got to figure out what side, where's the defensive value going to line up to go with that bat? And that is kind of how we decide how we're going to pay people. I mean, if we're just really being honest, right, how they stack up. It's no different in college. It's just a shorter window.
Yep. And true story, did you play with or against TJ Staten at all?
Against.
Okay, so TJ, my first couple days in Schaumburg, his locker's right next to mine, and as a vet, the guy had been, I think he was 10 years in at that point, AAA guy, and I walk in, this rookie just out of college, and walk into the clubhouse one day, he's like, man, I'm not playing today. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And he walks into Andy McCauley, our manager's office, and he's like, hey man, he's like, you play the outfield? I'm like, sure, why not? He's like, I'm not going out there. This is the weirdest thing I've ever been involved in, but yeah, I'm like, can I? He's left-handed. I'm like, can I borrow a glove from somebody? And ended up borrowing an outfielder's glove, and I ended up in my 4 years of indie ball playing more outfield than anything. And that was the first time I had played outfield since I think I was 13 years old. Was that game against Sioux City or something like that. So, if there's a chance to get in the lineup, jump at it. What's the worst that can happen, right?
Right.
What are some basic times for the 10-40-60? What do you got on that?
Well, the 60 has long been used by scouts, so those measurements are pretty readily available, right? As far as what's average has traditionally been a 6'9". Depending if you use a 40 system or a 45, the halves, fives, and 55s, the 60s, and 65s, depending how you do it, it goes up or down from there. But 6'9" is usually an average 60-yard dash. When I see guys that can run, and I use the 60 different, guys, where we do it here, we don't just look at the raw score. It's great to have that, but I want to see athleticism, body control, and how long you can maintain top speed. That's why I run the 60. That's, for me, that's what it tells me. It's not just about the 6'8", 6'7", 6'6". It's about how you're doing that. There's a lot of guys that have a slow first step that once they get to that 40 yards, they're closing ground between that 40 and the 60. The 40-yard dash is usually somewhere between 1.8 to 2.2, 2.15 second differential between the 40 and the 60. And the reason why is because they are at top speed by then, right? So we're able to close ground in 20 yards in about a second for every 10. So we're in that kind of range there for somebody who can run. And the 10 is a tough one because that measures how fast you get to top speed. That's your first step. And for me, I want to see acceleration. So anything under 1.7, 1.6, 1.5, that type of, I know it's a big range, but it really does depend on the athlete. 1.6 is usually pretty good for me. That translates to usually a 4.7 40, somewhere in that range. And then we're looking at, we say math, it's a 6'6", a 6'7", 60, right? And that's a plus runner for me. So if I'm looking at a guy that can run, looking at 1'6", I'm looking at 4'7"-ish. I'm looking at 6'7" to 6'8" in that range.
And one piece of advice that I can give you: compete against yourself, right? See where you're at right now today, and be better tomorrow. And if you put a number of those days back to back to back to back, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing, right? Because you're going to catch them. Okay, so if you want to get faster, start running. How about this one? Another metrics question. Simple metrics, we'll call them. But how much weight do the college coaches put on exit velo? I know you love this one. You're a big exit velo guy, right? Just put a tee in front of them, let them swing away. You love it.
If it doesn't play, it doesn't matter. Right. So exit velocity is a quantifiable way to talk about power. That's all it is, right? Before there was exit velocity, we talked about, we use grades of 2 to 8, 20 to 80. Some college coaches use 0 to 5, but I use the pro scale because that's my background and that's what I've done. So a 2 to 8 scale. So if I said a guy had 6 power or 60 power, that meant he had plus power. Okay. Now there's numbers that go with that. The exit velocity are numbers that go with that. So if you say the guy's got 60 power, there's raw power, which is kind of what you're looking at for raw exit velocity off a tee, let's say, or raw exit velocity in batting practice. And there's game power, which is power production. And that number, if I said he had 6 game power, that had to show up with consistent velocity off the bat, because that in a game, because that tells me, how many extra base hits I can reasonably expect. That's what I'm looking at with that type of projection. So I would say it only matters for really what's applicable in the game. I would say that when you're looking at a number, we'll use an average of 95, just pick a number out of thin air. So 95 on our exit velocity. That has an equivalent for what your raw score is going to be. But if you can't produce with that 95, the exit velocity doesn't mean anything. It still all comes down to what's playable with your numbers. What's playable, meaning how do you use it in a game? That's what matters. So while it may get somebody's attention if it's 106, that swing isn't going to be, if it's uphill and out of sync and max effort, that's not going to play because you can't hit that way. If it's going to be something that's controlled and balanced and has some rhythm to it, and we're able to channel that in the box and use the other side of the field or tunnel in the middle, if we're able to do those type of things, and you know what, that's something that's going to get a scout and a college coach's attention because that's got value. Right. So it's all about the how and let the numbers take care of it from there. How's that?
And I'll say the same thing. I mean, it goes on both sides of the ball, right? The art of hitting and the art of pitching are kind of lost. Like that's many people agree on that. And that's because we're being ruled by the radar gun. And again, that'll tell you, like, if you can run a gun and you hit triple digits, that's awesome, right? Like, no doubt that's going to open up some eyes. But like we said earlier in this presentation tonight, being consistent is what's key. That's what's going to keep you around, keep you in the game. Okay, so don't just light it up once. Once you know what you're capable of, try to hone it in, harness it, and figure out how to do it consistently.
Call it Nelson, you've heard me say this before. We call that the bar of achievement, right? And the P15 guys, we actually been through our events, our partner programs, they understand what I'm saying with that. And the bar of achievement is once you prove to yourself you can hit a certain level, right? Let's just, if that's 95 in exit velocity, or that is, today, with all this downtime and conditioning, like I'm playing, we were talking about that, right? So today I hit a new mark for myself. I can't go beneath that now. I've shown myself I can do it. I have to challenge myself every time to go beyond that, not beneath it. Anything less than that is letting myself down. It's failure. So you have to challenge yourself, as Nelson said. And once you set a level that you can get to, that bar of achievement, you can't go beneath it.
Yeah, this one's come up in both places, both in the chat and in the Q&A, and you're not going to like my answer on it, but it says, when's the ideal time to be committed by? And my answer is when you're ready. And how you get there is going to be independent to you. Don't jump at something because you see other people doing it on social media, because, you're reading something posted by a third party. Do your homework, talk to the coaches, talk it through with your family, know it's the right fit in your gut. And that's the ideal time. If you do anything short of that and you're uncertain going in, you're probably going to be uncertain going out. Okay. So make sure you're doing homework.
There's a few questions here in the middle, Nelson. Once one's been asked a couple of times. Al King, you see it as a player in 2022 class?
You go ahead and take it. I mean,
All right. As a player in in the 2022 class, what do you recommend in contacting coaches that you may have connected with at a showcase? They seem interested, but there's lots of positive feedback when they're not interested. They truly are. Any suggestions or recommendations? Here's what I'll say. Um, all you can do is what you can control. You can't control how somebody's going to respond to you. You can't control what somebody else's time is like or where you fit on their priority list. You can control what is in your sphere of influence. So I know this. When I'm interested in players, I go out of my way to relationship with them, right? Whether that was scouting, whether that was my year as a pro coach, whether that was on this side with what we're doing here, it doesn't matter that it's how you develop relationships with players, and you want to get to know them, and you want to have comfort with bringing them into their program. If somebody's not trying to develop that relationship with you, they're really not interested. I don't know how else to say that. It may sound harsh and cold, but it is a business at some point, and that's the business side of it. I used to tell players when I walked in to their houses sometimes, say, look, man, I'm sure if each other on the street, we'd get along great, we'd be buddies, but I'm here because you can play.
Yep.
Right. And that's the type of thing that you want to keep that in mind, is that it's not really personal, but if somebody wants to get to know you, they will. And then I would contact schools, regardless of whether or not you've seen them at a showcase. I'd contact schools you're interested in with all the information Nelson has advised you to contact them with, and see what you get back. Right. If somebody is interested, they're going to reply to you. They should reply to you regardless. I don't think there's any excuse for not replying to people. I reply to emails constantly. If you've emailed me or texted me or DM'd, I will get back to you 100% of the time. Doesn't matter who that is. They need to respond to you. With that said, you have to see how that goes from there. If they don't want a relationship, you move on.
It's great advice. We're in the, I think everybody's missing baseball so much that they want to make this like a full 9-inning game of time. So yeah, we're pitching the contact here, so it's going to be a short one. It's like a Maddox matchup, but let's see what how much weight do coaches put in the size of a player. I know there's been coaches that put a lot of emphasis into it. Not an easy gauge of that is look around the big leagues, right? I think it's went through some ebbs and flows, but if you look at some of the best players in the game right now, they're not always this tall. They're not always fill out a uniform in a certain way. You got to play. And I think if you can play, I mean, size is going to get somebody's attention, but if you can really play and you can stand out, you're going to get some opportunity. What do you get on that?
There's one unifying trait that players in the big leagues have. And, somebody said speed, and I would say no. People said that. So arm strength, no. You guys got to remember, we all have to remember that players at that level, they're 1% of the 1%, right? They're the absolute best players on the planet, and they're amazing athletes to begin with to get there. But the one unifying trait players have, whether they're Jose Altuve and 5'5" or Aaron Judge at 6'7", is they have strength. They have strength. And so it doesn't matter if you're 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", 5'2". It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm 6'5". It doesn't matter. Everybody's built different, but you have to have strength. And I would say that strength with athleticism now, to let that strength work for you,
explosive strength,
no question, will translate into whatever is needed. You'll answer all those questions.
This is an NCSA specific question asking about metrics, with a season and 9-month-old year-old evaluation coming into high school. Should a current freshman get data now to add to the profile? I touched on this before. Guys, remember, it's not a static document or a website that you're creating. Your NCSA profile, or if you're creating one on your own or doing your own website, however you're going about doing it, it's ever evolving, right? You want to get better as a player every day, provide updates on that, because if a coach opens up and, it says that you're 5'3", 130 pounds, and that was from 9 months ago, it does them absolutely no good. It says that you run an 8'2", when you're now a 7'3" runner, it does them no good. Okay, so make that a great place to track your progress and to continue to update coaches rather than blasting them all the time. Put your updates on there, because that's going to allow them to search and allow them to find players and add you to their list. Okay, so constantly be updating that as you're improving. Here's one from Tyler. He says that, he's being told by his coaches, and I'm not sure if he's referring to his high school coaches or his travel coaches, that they're going to handle recruiting. Don't worry about it. That's a tough one. I'll say this: there are a lot of great organizations that do spectacular things for their players, but they're also managing, on one team, maybe 15 to 20 guys, in an organization, 50, 100, 200 players, maybe 300 players in some cases. And you never want to be the person that looks back and says that they, put everything into what their coach did, right? They put all their eggs in that basket and said that they were going to wait on somebody else to do something for them, because even the most well-intended coaches have their own families, have their own jobs. Your high school coach has to probably teach as well. Okay, so ask your coach for support, be there for them, be there with them, keep that lines of communication open. But this process is ultimately up to you. And you're the one that's going to live with those decisions and have to be sitting there in lecture halls and in dorm rooms at whatever school that you end up at.
Yeah, we have a couple. You've done high school and travel ball both, right? We have
Yep.
Steve Trombley and Tim Grant have done both. They're here. I would encourage you to talk to, not leave any stone unturned with that. I'd ask your coaches, hey, coach, what are we doing with this? Do we have a plan? Do we have a track? Where are we going with this? What kind of direction should I follow? I wouldn't leave in anybody's hands without having something I could check off my list. Again, it's one of the things NCSA does, right? There's that recruiting checklist that you guys have had. I would follow those lists and use the tools that are available to me. And if those guys want to run point for you and they want to, man, albeit go for it and trust them, but have a checklist that you can check off, because it's more than one coach at any point. It really is about a group of people that lead you to the right place at the right time when something can happen. That's just my view.
Absolutely. And, one thing that you have to think about, somebody asked earlier about what's the biggest turnoff to college coaches. It's when you see competing, answers to questions, right? Competing interest. And you talk to the high school coach, you get one thing. You talk to the travel coach, you get one thing. You talk to the parent, you get another thing. The more everybody can be on the same page and pulling in the same direction, the more success you're going to have. And yes, people will have to make sacrifices and you'll have to have difficult conversations, but you can't let that or fear of that stand in your way. Be open and honest, and they'll do the same back to you. And, I think they'll respect you ultimately more because of it, because you can stand on your own 2 feet, have those tough, difficult conversations and work with them instead of against them. Let's see. Holy smokes. You see any that are jumping out at you here?
I'm just letting them roll, man.
All right. Let's see. How important are showcase teams? That's pretty broad question. I think it's being a place that supports you, being a place that you want to go to, being a place that you're surrounded with people that want to make you better every day. I don't care if it's called a showcase team, a little league team, or whatever team. If you're getting better every day and it's supporting you and what you want to do, you're in the right place. What would you say to a player that has not made the high school team all 4 years, but has some talent and wants to keep playing at the college level? Tough question, but I will say that we have had exactly that. We've had it in our Illinois Indians program. We had a guy that got cut from his high school team. Actually, a couple of them that I can think of now that it gets down to it, and went on and played college ball. And when I say to you, a lot of it is dependent on where you're at in the country. When you're in a real population dense area like Chicago and the surrounding suburbs, you're going to get a lot of kids going out for teams, and there's going to be some good players that get cut, right? Same thing in parts of California, same thing down in Texas, same thing in all parts of the country. Okay, so don't take that as a deterrent. I think you're probably the ideal candidate and the right person to be using the NCSA tools, because you really tell that story and see what schools are out there. So I know this is an anonymous question, but feel free to reach out to me and we'll definitely point you in the right direction and get you going in whatever way we can. I've had coaches reach out to me and ask what other schools are interested in me and what offers I have. How specific should my reply be, or how direct should I be with those coaches? That is like recruiting 101.
That's
I would
Blake
be
again.
shocked. What's that?
That's Blake Simpson again.
Yeah, and I would be shocked if there's many college coaches that don't ask that question, because as confident as they are in their ability to assess talent, they want to make sure that they're on the right page. And if they know that they're in a battle between a few different schools making up their mind, they know how aggressive they have to be in pursuing you. So, I would be respectful of those other places and maybe refer to, a couple schools from certain conferences and be a little bit more general with it. And when it boils down to making a decision and actually being on campus for an official visit, I think things change then. But until they, offer you something, you're under no obligation to really, share that. That's between you and your family. And if they can't respect that, then it's probably going to be a tough fit.
100%. Privacy is key in those conversations. Privacy is key.
Talking about building arm strength and arm endurance, right? We could probably have a whole conversation just
that's a whole webinar. Okay.
Right. Yeah. About the starter versus the reliever profile, but is arm strength and again, those are two different things, but focusing on plyometric work, on J bands, on long toss, or is it more in the weight room? I think the answer is D, all of the above, right? There's going to be elements to all of those that you're going to need to follow through with. And I would also, JB, this particular person who's asking, so it might be an offline conversation, but also look at your body type and the way that your body moves. There's guys that are a little bit bulkier that may not move as well, that might need to focus more on the flexibility or range of motion. There's guys that are a little longer and lankier that might need to fill out in some places. So I think kind of offsetting your weaknesses and developing those parts of you are what's most important. Anything else here you see? Here's a good question. Being up north and looking at colleges in Florida, as coach said, it's tough breaking into those schools. And I won't get into too many of the details, but what I can tell you is that, and again, this is where NCSA can really help. Look at the in-state versus out-of-state tuitions for a lot of places, and that's going to tell you a lot about what goes on there. Florida, in the example that you use right here, there's a huge disparity between the two. It's really cheap for Florida schools to recruit Florida kids, and a lot easier for them to get in, because you're talking about maybe an eighth of the price. The out-of-state tuition at a Florida school is way up there. If it's a state university, a lot of kids end up going to some of the private schools down there, which isn't going to make much of a difference. But if you are really interested, a route that I can suggest to you is look at some of the Florida junior colleges, right? Because that's going to accomplish a couple of things. You already want to go down there. It's going to get your foot in the door. And then if you do make the decision to attend a state Florida school, you'll be eligible for that in-state tuition. So that might be a good route, something that you might want to take a closer look at. And the same thing, Jeremy, you being a California native, it's probably even more applicable out there, just from the number of places you could play and the quality of athlete. Can an athlete be seen playing high school ball, or are travel ball showcase tournaments mostly where college recruiters like to attend? Victor, they can't do either right now. There are no games being played. So like I said earlier, my advice to any athlete is going to change much now than it was before. The difference is now you just don't have an alternative. I think having, a great online presence, getting all your information in one place, reaching out to the schools, they're going to tell you where you need to be and places they're going to be for you to be seen. Okay, so, rather worrying about what you should do, concentrate on what you can do right at this very moment. got a 2022, a sophomore asking about college coach communications. So you have this summer where you can start receiving some recruiting materials. You still have, depending on what division you're speaking of, but you still have until September of your junior year for those schools to be contacting you through the phone or through personal communication. At the Division III level, NAIA's junior colleges, that doesn't play a factor, so you're welcome to have those interactions with them. I got a question here from a coach asking about playing this summer after your senior year, since many guys are getting robbed of it. Going a whole spring without at-bats, without innings on the bump, everything else, it's going to be tough to come back from that. No doubt. That's a long layoff. Anybody that's been through an injury or something like that, knows it all too well. So if there's an opportunity for you to play, whether it's in a college wood bat league, if it's with an 18U team, if there's American Legion that goes up to 19 and you can get those innings, get those AVs back in preparation for fall of your freshman year, by all means, it would serve you a lot of good. So we're at well, thank you for joining us. We're at the 2-hour mark here. So I think, for the sake of my kids that have been patiently quiet for so long, and for the general public that has been on Facebook following along with us, we might be ending this here fairly soon. So any other questions or Jeremy, things that you want to close this out with?
Well, there's a Chandler Powell. Let's see. Players here. I just saw a couple more names. Fernando Sa. Just looking. Gage Smith. Being with the day classics on. See here. Jimmy's in the car. So Jimmy, how you doing? Caleb Duncan. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys on here that I've seen before. Noah Krieger. There's a lot of guys. It's good to see you guys continue to learn and ask questions and try to get find it at the next level. It's outstanding to see you guys doing that. That's it, man. That's all I got. I've had a pretty good. Been the last couple hours. Been 2 hours. It's been 2 hours, but it's been a very fast couple of hours. I'm glad that we could have this time together to answer some questions and hopefully give everybody a break in monotony. I'll say this: we're going to play baseball again. Okay, we're going to play baseball again, and we're going to play in 2020, and it's going to come up fast. It's going to come up fast. Use this time wisely because when I see you again, I always want to know how you improved. I want to know how you got better, and I'm going to ask those questions again for all of you. I'm going to want to have those unanswered questions I had when I saw you in December or January or July or whatever it was the last time I saw you. I'm gonna want to see what you did since then because, without progress, you've regressed, right? So I want to see how that happens. I want to see what you guys are doing. So stay ready and work hard and keep going with what you're going.
Yep. This is an opportune time. I said it earlier, no games equals opportunity. When we come out of this and you walk out to that ball field, make people say, damn, like,
right.
You got after it. Don't make them say the opposite and wonder if you're eating Doritos and playing Xbox all day.
For sure.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that joined us tonight. My email was in the invitations that went out. If you have any questions directly for Program 15, I'll make sure that those get in the right hands and we'll get those answered for you. But again, we really appreciate it. We're at 2 hours and 3 minutes. So that's like a Mark Burley, Greg Maddox, a couple complete game gems right there going head to head. But just an awesome night talking the game. We appreciate each and every one of you. So stay safe and we'll talk to y'all soon.